Personal protective equipment. In the same way we protect ourselves from the elements, cold or sun exposure for instance, by wearing appropriate clothing, we need to also protect ourselves from all kinds of other hazards and dangers. It makes sense that it may be a good idea to wear a helmet and other protection if you're going to ride a motorcycle, because we know what happens to people who have motorcycle accidents without protection: permanent damage, scarring, even death. At work, however, we may be exposed to hazards and dangers that are difficult or impossible for us to identify. Luckily, we are protected by various labor laws. Industrial hazards are identified, documented, and how to handle them is prescribed. Employers have a legal duty to provide personal protective equipment, or PPE, when it is required, and to enforce the use of it. Personal protective equipment. Personal protective equipment are articles of clothing or accessories that, when used correctly, will create a barrier between people and the health hazard to which they are exposed. Their purpose is to prevent, or at least reduce, adverse health effects caused by these substances. The Occupational Health and Safety Act 1993, Act No. 85 of 1993, General Safety Regulations state that employers must reduce risk as much as possible, provide free protective gear as necessary, maintain the gear in a good and clean condition, to make sure that anyone exposed to hazardous conditions is safe and free from health risks. Appropriate PPE and correct use. It is also an employer's responsibility to instruct employees in the proper use, maintenance, and limitations of the personal protective equipment and facilities provided. Training must then be provided to each employee required to use PPE. When is PPE necessary? What type of PPE is necessary? How to properly put on, take off, adjust, and wear. Limitations of the PPE. Proper care, maintenance, useful life, and disposal. The employer must make sure employees understand the risks of their particular tasks in the workplace, know and understand the capabilities and limitations of their PPE to reducing risk of any form of injury. Occupational hygiene monitoring, which measures dust, fumes, and noise, help to prevent the possibility of any harm to employees. By identification of the hazards, employers can ensure the correct PPE in the right context for the job at hand. Enforcing PPE use. The General Safety Regulations in the Act also regulates enforcing the use of the correct PPE. Employees may not work unless using the required personal protective equipment or facility provided in terms of the regulations. Wearing PPE should be a basic condition of employment. Managers or senior staff should be an example and wear their PPE. PPE issued to employees must be the correct size, type, and be in a clean condition. Employees must know how to put on and use the PPE correctly. Employers must reinforce the need for wearing PPE and have a disciplinary code for not wearing PPE. Employees must be informed of the risks of not wearing or using PPE. Employers may not charge employees for any PPE. Can PPE be removed from the workplace? Employers are instructed by law to take steps to ensure that no PPE or facility provided as required is removed from a workplace or premises where machinery is used, except for cleaning, repair, maintenance, modification, mending, or replacement. Summary. Employers must implement a PPE program where they assess the workplace for hazards, use engineering and work practice controls to eliminate or reduce hazards before using PPE, Select appropriate PPE to protect employees from hazards that cannot be eliminated. Inform employees why the PPE is necessary and when it must be worn. Train employees how to use and care for their PPE and how to recognize deterioration and failure. Require employees to wear selected PPE in the workplace. Thank you for participating in this occupational health and safety training module. Good luck with the written assessment.